Welcome to CFO Chronicles, the secrets behind success. The go-to podcast for fractional CFOs and accounting firm owners who want to attract more high-paying clients and increase their revenue. Hosted by James Donovan from 92 Media. This podcast dives into marketing strategies specifically designed for lead generation and client acquisition. In each episode, you'll hear from industry leaders sharing their success stories and expert tactics to help you sign more lucrative clients and grow your business. Tune in and discover actionable insights to transform your marketing efforts and boost your bottom line.
David, so excited to have you on the podcast today. I was looking forward to this one, had it circled on the calendar. I know we got connected a couple weeks ago, but I would love for you to do a quick introduction for those of you, for those who don't know who you are.
My pleasure, and thanks for having me in this discussion. I, about 6 years ago, started Harness, which is a platform for helping next generation equity holders and business owners navigate financial complexity. We focus principally on creating a best-in-class tax experience through software that we build to power great relationships between CPAs and their clients, and then also have a marketplace of related services, financial planning, holistic wealth management, trust and estate, et cetera. So the goal is to be a reasonably, one-stop shop for this emerging wealth builder community's most important financial advisory relationships.
Awesome. How did you get into that? Because that sounds, like you said, like a one-stop shop. It's something that I'm sure every CPA could use for their clients. So how did you get into this space?
So you sort of understand, you got to go back to the early days of the last business that I helped to build, which was Compass, now the largest tech-enabled real estate brokerage in the country, in the US. And we initially started with the view that we had to disrupt the role of the traditional real estate agent. We were going to have salaried neighborhood specialists to reimagine the delivery of that advisory service. And, what we found in the first few months of running the business was there was this big innovation opportunity, but it actually didn't involve disrupting the agent who most clients generally liked. It was disrupting the role of the traditional brokerage that was taking, on average, a third of the economics in the US. And so we spent, the company's now been around for, almost 12 years, continually sort of, building in all but the first year, basically, a platform to create a new type of 21st century brokerage or platform for great agents to run their business. And that theme of tech enabling advisors to have the digital resources and other tools to serve their clients more intelligently, more seamlessly, more smoothly, more delightfully, more conveniently, was still in a pretty nascent stage across a lot of service verticals where people still cared about the advice of the advisor they're working with, but where there was a big gap in what people kind of expected from a paid service in most verticals in the 21st century. And so I had the opportunity to go back to Bain Capital. I'd been there before Compass, before business school, and worked with their venture team and sort of had this pattern recognition of, gosh, the tax financial advisory space feels very similar in that people still really care about, in many cases, working with an advisor, understanding the nuances of complex decisions. There's a lot of data. It generally is very poorly utilized for anything other than like the exact thing that someone's trying to solve for today. And wouldn't it be cool if there was an opportunity to sort of pull stuff together? The other observation, or thread of this was really like, it does resonate with me personally, despite having been a CFO and investor on the private equity side and, an MBA, every like 3 to 6 months, I'd be like, oh, shoot, I like totally missed this thing that I could have done that would have created more value. And not like, oh, I didn't buy NVIDIA when it was, trading at 1/10 the value. It's like, no, I just should have put this taxable investment in this type of account, or I could have, used pre-tax dollars for this, or I could have saved, as it turned out, a seven-figure sum in taxes based on Compass stock if I hadn't gotten bad advice from, a really smart person, but not the right CPA that knew about some tax law changes in, 2012, et cetera. So that stuff all kind of led to this idea that there was a business worth trying to build.
Okay, interesting. And that's a lot of that is over my head. Sounds very complex for the business owner who's not involved day to day in all the taxes and the regulations. So do you guys go to market directly to other CPA firms? Do you also go directly to the end user? Like, who's your ideal client, essentially?
So we have both a D2C and a B2B side of the business. So we actively go out and look for advisors breaking away from a top 100 US tax firm interested in creating their own practice, as well as really well run small boutiques, but ones that typically don't have, the most compelling digital experience or sort of automated workflow, et cetera, to create better outcomes and power the experience both for those tax advisors and the existing clients that they serve. Where the business started, which we still have and is thriving, is this consumer-facing marketplace where if James was going out and looking for a CPA personally, tax services for, your business, financial advisor, whatever, that we've curated some of the best out there. And in some of these verticals, it's just about finding the perfect advisor or an ideal advisor to kind of meet your objectives. In tax, it's that plus we've actually built and created the service experience, leveraging the expertise, of an existing advisor, but where the full experience is harness powered on a technology standpoint.
Okay, that's really interesting. How are you guys getting in front of new potential clients right now?
On the tax advisor side, and I would say that there's overlap in some of the strategies for both of those demographics or markets. For tax advisors, we're creating a lot of content around what it means today to run a really efficient business. What are the components of doing that to hopefully demonstrate the insight that we've had from, a lot of the team working in tech enablement of advisor services for more than the last decade. Our head of product at Adapar, the leading wealth tech data company for financial advisors, me and our head of sales at Compass, building software for real estate advisors, and then our head of engineering, who was at Flatiron Health, not for advisors, but working with really big data sets and figuring out how you draw better insights to create, better outcomes in that case in the health space. So content is a big piece of it. We have this very large interconnected marketplace network, in the sort of ether out there. Financial advisors work with tax advisors work with trust and estate advisors. And so we also triangulate among the network that we have of figuring out who really good advisors we already have collaborated with, who else they work with, who they like, and using that to kind of expand the web of those that are familiar with Harness, partners of Harness, et cetera, as we expand. On the consumer side, we've also found a lot of success in that a lot of large US financial advisory firms increasingly want to provide as comprehensive a solution financially as possible for their clients, and tax is a really big part of that. And so for some really large institutions, our ability to have a national scale, technology forward, but very competitively priced offering is a really compelling opportunity, for them to be able to send clients to us when they have those tax needs.
Okay, awesome. This is really interesting, and I think hopefully a lot of people listening will want to reach out to you. Who would be like the average size of businesses you're working with? Is it CPA firms with like 50 plus staff and they're doing, X amount of revenue per year, or is it generally smaller firms? Like who would be the ideal clientele for you guys?
So we have successfully partnered with everything from the breakaway advisor who's starting their business, today, but has a very impressive pedigree and a pathway to build a successful independent practice, all the way up to, probably a $5 million revenue practice with multiple partners and, a staff of, 10 to 20 people. I think what we built will ultimately be highly valuable for the next segment in terms of scale as you build up more towards like regional scale firms. But we haven't focused on that, quasi enterprise level permissioning functionality yet. We will, but a little bit less so far.
Okay, interesting. I'm curious, David, what what gets you excited about what you do on a day-to-day basis? What gets you out of bed each morning?
So I'd say two things. I think similar to the process of buying or selling a home, tax in particular, but also kind of financial planning advisory is stressful to a lot of people. It's very important. It shapes, your wherewithal to meet your objectives, paying for a kid's school, buying a second home, taking care of a parent or, others, etc. And so having a business that hopefully creates a lot of confidence in the clients that we serve, that the advisors we work with do a great job. There is a overlay of a client success team that creates another layer to help make the process more intelligent, more seamless. There is technology that supports all of these components, et cetera, that we're just giving people comfort and confidence in what they're tackling. Going back like a million years, I wrote a business book when I was in college and had the great fortune of interviewing Seth Klarman, kind of one of the legends of hedge fund and investment management. And I was asking him about sort of the, justification for fees and value of an advisor. And he's like, listen, if someone in financial services only matches the market in performance, but provides the confidence for his or her clients that they can sleep at night, they're not, dumping all their money in the stock market when things are at its frothiest and pulling out, at the bottom when it seems scary. That's someone who is creating an exceptionally high amount of value. And that's coming from someone who's managed to remarkably beat the market, on average by hundreds of basis points per year. So what we're doing, I think, is obviously a lot more than that, especially on sort of the tech side of things, but giving that confidence is there. I think the second is running a small business is really hard in general. I think it's really hard in real estate, where it's a cutthroat, highly competitive industry, fast moving, et cetera. It's really hard in tax, where it's seasonal, the stakes are high, clients have high expectations, don't totally understand things, et cetera. And so if we can actually help those business owner entrepreneurs to deliver a better experience to their clients, hopefully create more visibility, transparency, hopefully allow them to, just generate better outcomes for themselves as well as for their clients, et cetera. That's super exciting. And I think at a more like macro intellectual level, tax is this unbelievably data-rich picture into each person and their household. And I think Canada's a little bit more straightforward than the US is in terms of tax code and complexity, but there is so much information, nuance, et cetera, that all gets rolled up in the tax process and is in 99+% of cases just used to do a filing and then just kind of disappears. And what we are building and hope to be building is a way that all that data actually is visualized more intelligently to the client. They know what's going into the return. They see opportunities coming out of it. And that leads to more confidence, better decision making, a better collaboration experience with their tax advisor, and in many cases, also a better experience working with a financial advisor, or a trust and estate attorney, insurance agent, whatever is important, because there's just more clarity on all the components of someone's financial life.
You mentioned building a business, running a small business is really hard. And that is so true and probably so
Appreciate it.
underestimated how it was mentioned. What are some of the like biggest hurdles you've had to overcome while building this business?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Feeling like your growth has hit a plateau, even though you're putting in the work? Maybe you're attracting clients, but not the high-end ones who see your true value as an advisor. Or you're stuck in compliance mode with all the big wins happening just a few months of the year. I get it. It's frustrating. And it's not how you envisioned your business evolving. That's why I'm offering a strategy call designed specifically for business owners ready to break through these barriers. This isn't just about leads. It's about creating a strategy that aligns with your marketing, personal brand, and sales approach to attract clients who pay what you're worth. Imagine starting the new year with a clear plan, a stronger personal brand, and more high-ticket clients. If you're serious about taking things to the next level and want a true growth partner, now's the time. Visit accountingleadsnow.com or click the link in the show notes to book your strategy call. Don't let another month pass by without a roadmap to achieve the results you're after. I'm here to help you make the shift.
Well, I think there are both some great benefits of having external capital, to scale your business, and the challenges for all the advisors we work with that are largely, self-funded or have even, borrowed money to buy a business from someone else that they worked in, et cetera. I think the challenge of the venture-backed model is the expectation is you're growing quite quickly when things are going really well. Investors are sort of happy to root and be on board and give you new capital if they're convinced that lots of other investors want to give you capital, and there's, a sense of FOMO. Things are tough, all of a sudden you can find yourself sort of on an island, trying to simultaneously grow quickly and drive to profitability and, hire and retain great people. That is just a lot of stuff at once relative to the traditional way of building a business over years and growing, but kind of compounding that growth slowly versus exponentially. I think for any venture ecosystem entrepreneur who's in a similar starting time period of us, 2018, 2019, you had this highly uncertain COVID period, the challenges of running a business often with lots of new hires you never met in person, et cetera. Then shifting into this like ebullient time period, at least for certain market segments, crypto, certain like consumer things, et cetera. Then having this total freezing over of any venture activity, for a long period of time. Then having sort of a very big pocket of AI activity, but if you're not in AI, then, that can be challenging. So I think it's required a level of humility and tenacity to kind of stick around and have the opportunity to keep building. And I think it's generally either companies that were super lucky in raising huge amounts of money, and even if things weren't going well, they were smart enough to pause the brakes with huge balances and then recalibrate, since they had a lot of time to do it, or businesses that have like a really compelling value proposition. I think for investors, even skeptical ones or even ones where they've got, deep pockets and short arms, that there's like a compelling value prop to back a business that a group of investors or a single investor really believes can be one that is gonna, 10x plus over the coming years and be meaningfully valuable in whatever industry that business is playing in.
Okay, cool. What we can flip to the other side of the fence. What's been one of your most proudest moments while building this business over the last handful of years? What stands out to you?
It tends to be individual client experience anecdotes more than like Inc. 5000 list stuff or speaking in a conference, et cetera. I would say that, recently we just hired a head of engineering, was doing a reference call, and one of the references was like, wait, Harness, it seems so familiar. Oh, my CPA just joined your platform. And oh my goodness, it was so much better working with him
It's cool.
after he did that versus before. And you're like, yes, like that is what we are here, trying to do. And in that similar vein, one of the tax advisors that we work with who was a breakaway, had been in a big firm, left to create his own practice and did it, through us, sent a note, either during or just after like a really busy season, in the spring, saying, I'm sitting in the same desk, same chair that I was at a year ago, whatever COVID times, et cetera, working for this big firm. And it was like night and day that even though I was doing the same thing and working just as hard, maybe harder, the sense that I owned the outcomes, I owned the client, the pressure was not from a more senior partner or some external factor, but like my desire to create value and build a successful practice. It's just so enriching. And I wouldn't have done it had, your team not approached me and sort of given me the confidence that there was a platform that would help me, do this in a way that wouldn't be overwhelming. So I think those are the things that you really get most excited about, because there are a lot of bad days, or things that are aggravating or things that go wrong, et cetera. And when people, hopefully lots of people value what you're doing, but when people actually go out of their way to tell you that, or you stumble upon it, that's particularly meaningful.
That's cool. Yeah, it never gets old hearing wins from clients, big or small. And for me as well, I find it always trumps what seems like a bigger win at the time, or like you said, speaking on stage or a big sale, whatever it is, a big deal. But it's when someone reaches out and says like, hey, this is working, this is really cool, this is the outcome we've got, and you start to feel that ripple effect. It
Yeah,
feels very real at that point, which is pretty cool.
totally.
What's next for the business?
We got a lot on the roadmap. I mean, I think there is just tremendous opportunity when you're trying to build a core part of the operating system for anyone, but certainly for an advisor with sort of complex workflows. So we're, continuing to create integrations with more softwares that are part of the toolkit of advisors, more stuff that creates insight for the advisor and the client around what's happening in the process and their business, et cetera, to create value. Um, to hopefully, again, really make tax feel much more strategic and central to the clients that we serve through empowering their advisor to be, more central and more valuable, and having that, woven into the broader advice ecosystem that Harness has been building now for over half a decade.
That's really cool. And then last question for you, David. Oh, it's slipping my mind now. How how do you stay motivated when things are, they feel like they're going sideways, or feels like everything inside is burning down? Because I know for me, that happens almost on a regular basis. It feels like everything is an absolute disaster on the inside, and then you do get a message from a client and like, hey, this is great, thank you so much. And it's like, okay, it's not as bad from the
Yeah.
outside looking in because you're in the, you're in the picture all the time. But how do you, from like a mindset standpoint, make sure and you keep your team on track, and right, that we are going in the right direction despite it feeling like, the house of cards is falling down?
Yeah. Well, I think it's helpful to be doing it for the second time and now to have been doing it for, gosh, like 12 years, basically. So I know how close a business can be to like not continuing and still have a multi-billion-dollar outcome IPO. So I think that's helpful to like have seen and lived it and not just have been either part of a business that didn't make it or a business that had it really easy and, like Instagram got going in a year later or whatever it was, got acquired for $500 million. So I think that's important. I think the other piece too is there are a lot of folks who made a bet on you if you're a founder. I think most importantly, probably the employees and team members that have sort of said, hey, like, I think it's worth like a chapter of my career, contributing to this thing that, your team or you are building. You can't take that lightly, because the people you're going after are people that have lots of different professional opportunities, generally speaking. The second, constituency are the clients and the early adopters who have taken, some form of risk in using a earlier stage, less established business than just sticking to the supermarket brand, esque products of whatever it is that you're offering. And then, your investors as well, where they've contributed capital. In many cases, it's big institutions, and in many cases for us, it's also individuals, that I know and are making investment in part based on the opportunity and in part based on, me or the team, et cetera. So, it puts a reasonable amount of pressure that you obviously want to perform for all those folks that have invested time, reputation, or capital in what you're trying to build.
Awesome. I love that. And what you're saying about pressure as well. I love the quote, pressure is a privilege. I think it makes you work in a really mindful direction. Some people might fold under it, but I think if you don't have that pressure, personally, I feel like I don't know, you just might not be making as much of an impact as you could be if you don't feel a bit of stress or a bit of pressure from some outside forces.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I actually cite that often, including like in a recent team meeting, because it's on the wall at Arthur Ashe for around the US Open. I don't know if you're a tennis fan, but on the player runways, you're going into their main stage court, that is on a big sign in the TV coverage. But knowing it's totally true that there was a ton of pressure beginning of this year when we were launching this end-to-end practice management solution and simultaneously having new advisor and their clients on, transitioning existing advisors, two different parts of the equation that had to work well, thousands of people. And that was a lot of pressure. And I give the credit to the team for really working as collaboratively, as hard as they ever have, and that being, a success and building from there, which is super exciting.
That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that as well, that it's the tie with the US Open where that quote's listed. That's really interesting. David, how can people get in touch with you after listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think for hopefully some tax advisors out there, lots of, individuals thinking that in the US at least, hey, we are getting close to the end of extension season. That was maybe not the greatest tax experience. There could be something better out there. If you visit harnesswealth.com, at the top there's a section for advisors, and then a lot of it's geared towards the consumer audience that's looking for better advisors, better outcomes, some guidance on even what types of services or advisors could be most helpful for their situation. So hopefully that's got the resources that you might be looking for.
Perfect. Harness Wealth, look out for David Snyder. It's been a pleasure having you on today, and I hope some people go check out your site and have a conversation with you.
Thanks, James. Enjoyed the conversation as well.
Thanks for listening to CFO Chronicles, the secrets behind success. We hope today's episode provided valuable strategies to help you attract more high-paying clients. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share with fellow professionals. Connect with us on LinkedIn and leave a review or comment to join the conversation. Your feedback helps us bring you the best insights in finance and marketing. Until next time, keep striving for success and unlocking your business's potential.